Hello, welcome to another edition of the VOD Weekly News Recap. I am Glorious Haddijatou Njie. Good evening. Now let's look at the headlines. Khalifa Saleh addresses Russia-Ukraine war at the ACP-EU Joint Parliamentary Assembly. Public health officers end sit-down strike. ECOWAS AU mission briefed the media on National Assembly parliamentary elections findings. NPP acquires 18 seats in the parliamentary elections. GRA launches maiden Taxpayers Charter. South Africa ex-leader to institute private prosecution against prosecutor Billy Drowner. Alpha Conde returns to Conakry after treatment abroad. EU turns to Nigeria as alternative to Russia oil and gas. Joyce Chaporo, Kenya's long-distance runner, gets 4 years dumping ban. 3 children drowned in abandoned pit in Ghana. Dozen killed by landslides after Philippine storms. Police arrest suspect in New York subway shooting without incident. Biden accuses Russia of genocide in Ukraine. Le Pen wants France out of NATO Integrated Command, backs NATO's Russia links. Australia's state Victoria to host Commonwealth Games in 2026. Those were the headlines. Now let's look at the news in detail. Khalifa Saleh, former National Assembly member for Serekunda, on Thursday briefed the press on his mission to France as head of the delegation for the Gambia at the African, Caribbean and Pacific Joint Parliament with the European Parliament. The ACP-EU Joint Parliamentary Assembly was created to bring together the elected representatives of the European Union and the elected representatives of the African, Caribbean and Pacific states that have signed the Cotonou Agreement. In a statement, Honorable Saleh said that he had mapped out a way forward that the Gambia and the world should take to address the war in Ukraine during the joint session. He said there are 2 rights that exist that each country must recognize, and that one is the right to self-determination and independence, leading to the establishment of sovereignty states and republics, while the other is the right to self-determination and independence, leading to the establishment of the sovereignty of the people. The cited 2 examples. One was the African war in Afghanistan, in which they fought against the Taliban for many years, but they ended up leaving the country in the hands of the Taliban to rule. He said many lives were lost, properties destroyed, and millions were spent in the war.
World of tyrants, people who do not feel the suffering of people who do not need to change the world. It's not that your interpretation is correct, that African states do not want to condemn Russia. We do not want to be part of your foreign policy. We do not want you to use us. We want to be free to determine for ourselves whether we condemn or not condemn, and when we will condemn. So it is important for you to change your mentality, that we need to understand that we are all equal, and sometimes we are even more advanced than you.
Saleh added that the war in Ukraine should stop and every effort should be made to stop it. He said as it stands, Russia cannot impose her will on Ukraine, and equally Ukraine and NATO cannot impose their will on Russia. He then concluded that if there was distrust and fear that made Russia do what it is doing, then that fear has now become irrational, because after almost weeks of fighting, NATO has not intervened militarily in the war, and said it is now clear that we have a wall which no nation or state can impose her will on the other. Public health officers end sit-down strike. Haddijatou Njie reports.
The Association of Public Health Officers embarked on the sit-down strike as the Minister of Health failed to pay their allowances, but later declared the resumption of work last week, after the government promises to resolve the matter. Talking to the press, Musanget, the vice president, stated that it has been years that the public health have been victims of cardiac treatment by authorities of the Minister of Health. Since on the 6th April, the Executive and Allowance Task Force of the Public Health Officers had been engaging the administration of the Minister of Health and most recently the Secretary General and Head of Civil Service to amicably find a solution to the matter, he said. He further disclosed that on the 10th April 2022, public health officers convened an emergency congress to come to conclusion with regard to the sit-down strike, and as part of the resolutions agreed upon from the emergency congress, they have concluded that the public health officers should have reported back to work on Tuesday, 12 April 2022, marking the end of strike for the first phase of the sit-down strike. Haddijatou Njie reporting for VOD.
The Elections Observation Mission of the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, and African Union shared their findings and their recommendation to the general public in Bijilo at the Sadauda Karabajawara International Conference Center. According to the ECOWAS parliamentary statement, pursuant to Article 12 and other relevant provisions of the Supplementary Protocol on Democracy and Good Governance 2001, and other relevant regional and international instructions, President of the ECOWAS Commission, Mohamed Chambash, shared their parliamentary finding. They stated that a peaceful and orderly voting process was observed. Committed and professional polling staffs, presence of party agents in polling stations, unsystematic presence of citizen observers amongst others, significant participation of women as polling staffs. The mission team deployed 19 observers in 17 constituencies across the country who visited 83 polling stations on election day to observe the opening, voting, closing, and counting procedures in their respective areas of deployment, with 71% in urban and 29% in rural areas. His Excellency Dr. Speciosha Wandarin, the former Vice President of Uganda, is the head of the AU Election Observation Mission to the Gambia.
Since 1960, the Gambia has used a homegrown voting system which uses drums, tokens, sand, and sieves. And you can see me really smiling over this. Although the voting system is simple, effective, and efficient, some stakeholders propose to replace it with the paper ballots, citing cost and logistical factors related to ease of diaspora voting and high numbers of candidates. We want to say that given pending proposals under the Elections Bill to change the electoral and voting systems, the African Union Election Observation Mission is still of the view that the voting system is a unique innovation, a unique African innovation, which has worked for the Gambia and for transparency of elections in Gambia in casting votes. We wish to recommend that further effort be put into making this system better, which means retaining it, so that Africa can also be proud of an innovation which is truly from its soil and can be emulated everywhere.
She made suggestions that the Gambia try and retain its current voting system, as it's been speculations that the IEC are planning to bring back the paper ballot. Gambians on Saturday went to the polls to vote for the country's future lawmakers in the National Assembly, which 58 seats are required to be in Parliament for the next 5 years' term. The single-round vote helped to choose 53 lawmakers, whilst Barrow serving a second 5-year term after last December electorate victory, named the 5 others, including the Parliament Speaker. Polling stations opened at 8 a.m. and closed at 5 p.m. Campaign ended on Thursday evening, and the announcement of the results started Saturday night around 10 p.m., whereas the rest on Sunday 8:30 a.m. The President's National People's Party, created in 2020 after the breakup of the coalition that brought Barrow to power, is pushing for a parliamentary majority with 18 seats. The United Democratic Party, the opposition formation, which dominated the previous chamber and led by Ousainou Darboe, landed with 15 seats after unsuccessfully losing to NPP in the last December presidential elections, while the independent candidate secured 12 seats, NRP 4 seats, APRC 2 seats, and PDOIS 2 seats. The total number of registered voters were 962,157. Amount of ballot cast was 492,754, with the voters turnout of 51.2%. On Thursday, the newly elected National Assembly members sworn in at the National Assembly for a 5-year term as representatives for different constituencies across the country. Fabakary Tombong Jatta was sworn in as the National Assembly Speaker, Haddijatou Njie, as Deputy Speaker, including other nominated members such as Fatoumata Jawara, Maimouna Cissé Darboe, Keba Lang Fofana. The management of the Gambia Revenue Authority (GRA) on Wednesday launched its maiden Taxpayers Charter at an event held at the Sir Dawda Jawara Conference Center. Speaking at the launching, the Commissioner General of GRA, Yankuba Darboe, said that Taxpayers Charter is one of the most important deliverables on the GRA's strategic plans 2022 to 2024. He noted that the authority has indeed come a long way in its drive to offer best service delivery to taxpayers through the Taxpayers Education Program. According to Darboe, since the inception of the authority, the Directorate of Technical Service tirelessly embarked on sensitizing taxpayers on their rights and obligations as provided in the revenue laws administered by the GRA. He further stated that the taxation is the largest source of government revenue and therefore plays a key role in financing government programs including education, health, social protection, and infrastructure, to name a few. The mobilization of revenue collection is therefore critical in the development of our country, he said, adding that as a tax administration, we are aware of the fact that we are operating in a challenging environment by asking people and businesses alike to part with their hard-earned money through the payment of taxes. Also speaking at the event was the Minister of Finance and Economic Affairs, Mambo Njie. He commended the GRA for proposing brilliant initiative in developing the launching the Taxpayers Charter, which outlines the obligations and rights of our esteemed taxpayers. This initiative by GRA is indeed laudable and worthy of commendation. Now let's look at the news beyond our borders. Jacob Zuma has continued his bid to remove the lead prosecutor from the highly anticipated corruption trial against the former South African president that commenced on Monday. Mr. Zuma faced multiple charges of fraud, racketeering, and money laundering relating to $2 billion, €1.8 billion, 1990s AIM deals with several European companies. He is charged alongside French company Thales. Both denied the charges, while Zuma claims are a witch hunt by political rivals. Last month, the Supreme Court of Appeal rejected Zuma's application to have prosecutor Billy Downer take off the case. Mr. Downer was accused of bias and leaking confidential information to a journalist, contravention of the National Prosecution Act, amongst other complaints. The SCA dismissed the application for leave to appeal on the grounds that there was no reasonable prospect of success and there was no other compelling reason why an appeal should be heard. The Jacob Zuma Foundation said Zuma's legal teams have been instructed to institute a private prosecution against Mr. Downer in the next few days. A reconsideration application has also been filed, a petition to hear the appeal to the president of the SCA. Alpha Conde returns to Conakry after treatment abroad. Njie reports.
The post-Guinean President Alpha Conde returned to Conakry on Friday afternoon after medical treatments in the United Arab Emirates, according to a statement by the transitional government read on state television. The former president will remain in Guinea as long as his health allows. His integrity and dignity will always be respected in accordance with his rank and status, the statement read. A Guinean Foreign Affairs document indicates that it was the authorities in Conakry who asked for his return following the broadcast in March of a recording attributed to the former head of state from Emirates. The recording spoke of the need for Mr. Conde's party to get into battle in anticipation of a serious deterioration in Guinea. For the Minister of Foreign Affairs, these actions constitute a threat to the peace and stability of Guinea and violates the term of commitment by ECOWAS to guarantee the former president. Meanwhile, the coalition that has fought Conde for the months has now urged the ruling junta to immediately open the trial of the former head of state after his return from abroad. The 84-year-old Alpha Conde left the country in mid-January for medical examinations. His party, the RPG, said in a statement that it will continue to work for his complete release and will submit a request for a visit in the coming days. As the head of the country for nearly 11 years, he was overthrown on September 5, 2021 by Colonel Doumbouya, who has since become the President of the Republic. Njie reporting for VOD.
On Monday, the EU ambassador to Nigeria, Samola Isopi, together with France, Italy, Portugal, and Spain's ambassador met with the management of the Nigerian National Petroleum Company, NNPC. The European Union is courting its first African liquefied natural gas supplier. EU ambassador to Nigeria, Samola Isopi, together with France, Italy, Portugal, and Spain's ambassador visited Monday the headquarters of the NNPC and met with the company's management. The visit came as Europe tries to reduce its reliance on Russian gas. After the United States and Qatar, Russia was in 2021 Europe's third liquefied natural gas supplier. The European envoys to Nigeria therefore sought to strengthen their cooperation in the energy sector with Africa's top economic. According to a statement by the NNPC spokesperson, the group managing director assured the European delegation that the company would continue to deepen its relationship with EU companies in Nigeria. He added the company would work particularly towards increasing gas supply to the global market. The same day, Italy secured a deal with Algeria for more natural gas imports. Such a conflict between Russia and Ukraine broke out in February. Europe has turned towards different African partners to reduce dependence on Russian energy. Nigerian and Algerians are the biggest African liquefied natural gas suppliers to the whole continent. Kenya's long-distance runner, Joyce Chaporo, has been banned for 4 years for an Athlete Biological Passport (ABP) violation. The 33-year-old won the 10,000 meters of the Commonwealth Games in Glasgow in 2014 and also took the African title over the same distance in Marrakech that year. Chaporo has been provisionally suspended since June 2019 after an expert panel studied anomalies in blood sample collected by world athletes between 2016 to 2017. The panel concluded the likelihood of the anomalicity in results due to blood manipulation, the artificial increase of red blood cells using a stimulant, was high. Chaporo explained the result by saying she suffered from hemoglobin imbalance and vaginal bleeding, which was caused by a contraceptive injected every 3 months, had an iron-rich diet, and took 3 drugs to treat these conditions. However, the Court of Arbitration for Sport decided to ban Chaporo after upholding an appeal filed by the Athletic Integrity Unit, and her 4-year period of ineligibility has been backdated to the start of her provisional suspension. Chaporo's result between 6 April 2016 and 4 August 2017, which includes a 3rd place finish in the Boston Marathon in April 2016, will be disqualified, and she will be required to forfeit any medals, prize, and appearance fee gained in that time. Meanwhile, CAS have ruled the Anti-Doping Agency of Kenya should pay 2,000 Swiss francs, that's $2,140 to the World Athletic as a contribution towards its legal costs and other expenses. As a result, Kenya's athletics should still need to undergo 3 out of competitions tests in a 10-month period before the World Championship of Olympic Games. 3 children drowned in abandoned pit in Ghana. Haddijatou reports.
3 boys aged between 6 and 9 have drowned in a pit at Tuba in the Ga South municipality in the Greater Accra region of Ghana. The 3 are Isaac Amao and siblings, Elisha Kakar Abunua and Samuel Tawad Mensa. A report cited by state-owned news outlet Graphic Outline saw that the children have left home to play around the area of the incident last Saturday morning and decided to wash down in the pit created by rainwater. The topsoil at the area had been removed due to illegal sand and gravel winning activities. Unknown to the children, a mudslide had created the pit, making the base muddy, a development that made it difficult for them to swim out stagnant water in the pit. Their bodies have been disposed at the morgue for autopsy and investigations by the police. The Ga South Municipal Assembly stopped the illegal sand winning activities about 2 years ago, but the vast parcel of distributed land lies precariously with many death traps, especially during the rainy season. It is not clear how many of such incidents have happened in Ghana over the past years. However, it can be recalled that in February this year, a similar incident occurred which caused the death of a 5-year-old Moroccan boy who was trapped in a well for 4 days. Haddijatou reporting for VOD.
Now let's look at the international news. At least 53 people have been killed in landslides and floods after Tropical Storm Maggie devastated the Philippines. Rescue crew were still looking for survivors in flooded villages on Wednesday, digging through mud and wading through chest-high waters. However, the death toll from Sunday's natural disaster is only expected to climb, officials said. Villages around Bay City in the central Leon province are worst hit. The hillside avalanches and overflowing rivers wiped our homes and buried many people alive. The city's mayor, Jose Carlos Carri, told news outlet CNN that at least 47 people in the area had been killed. In one village, Pilar, about 80% of the houses have been washed out to sea, a government official told news agency. Philippines' National Disaster Agent has also reported deaths in the southern Davao region, Maringo, and in the central Negros Oriental provinces. More than 100,000 people in the southern and eastern Philippine Islands have been affected by the storm, authorities said. Police in New York City have arrested a man suspected of shooting 10 communers in a rush-hour attack at the Brooklyn subway station. Frank James, 62, is alleged to have donned a construction worker's helmet, vest and a gas mask before throwing smoke grenades and opening fire. A massive 30 hours manhunt was launched in the wake of the attack. Mr. James was taken into custody on Wednesday afternoon in Hamilton after police received a tip-off. They said, "My fellow New Yorkers, we got him," Mayor Eric Adams said via video during a news conference. Officials said Mr. James was the sole suspect in the shooting at Brooklyn's 36th Street station on Tuesday morning. 23 people were wounded, 10 of them from gunfire. The attack renewed call to address violence in the city's transit system. Keishan Sue, New York's police commissioner, said that Mr. James was arrested without incident. There was nowhere left for him to run, she said. Police did not answer questions about the individual who called in the tip. Through the Associated Press and CNN are reporting the suspect was the one who tipped off police to his location in Lower Manhattan. Mr. James will be charged on several counts, authorities said, including the violation of the federal law which prohibits terrorism and other violent attacks against mass transit system. He could face life imprisonment if found guilty. He had 9 prior arrests, police said, and he had ties to Ohio, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and New Jersey. Biden assures Russia of genocide in Ukraine. Njie reports.
During a speech about surging inflation on Tuesday, U.S. President Joe Biden appeared to accuse Russia's Vladimir Putin of genocide. The Biden administration has previously stopped short of describing civilians killing in Ukraine as genocide but has accused Mr. Putin of war crimes. The White House is seeking to pin the blame for rising consumer prices in Russia's invasion of Ukraine, though American inflation predates the war. Yes, I call it genocide because it has become clearer and clearer that Putin is just trying to wipe out the idea of being able to be Ukrainian, and the evidence is mounting, Biden told reporters. He added, "We will let the lawyers decide internationally whether or not it qualifies, but it sure seems that way to me." Biden has repeatedly called Russian President Vladimir Putin a war criminal, but Tuesday marked the first time he accused Russia of committing genocide in Ukraine. Your family budget, your ability to fill your tank, none of it should hinge on whether a dictator declares a war and commits genocide a half a world away, Biden said at an event in Iowa on fuel prices. Secretary of State Antony Blinken and National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan have both stopped short of describing Russia's assault as genocide in recent days. Njie reporting for VOD.
French far-right leader Marine Le Pen on Wednesday backed close ties with NATO and Russia, adding that if she won the presidency, Paris would once again leave the military command of the US-led alliance. Le Pen, who on April 24th faced President Emmanuel Macron in the runoff, said there should be a strategic reapportionment between NATO and Russia once the war launched by Moscow against Ukraine has ended. As soon as the Russian-Ukrainian war is over and has been settled by the peace trend, I will call for the implementation of the strategic reapportionment between NATO and Russia, Le Pen told a news conference packed with international reporters. Wednesday's press conference, just 11 days ahead of the 2022 French presidential runoff, was billed as a major foreign policy address for the far-right candidate who has no prior experience in government or international affairs. A Le Pen victory in the April 24th runoff would reverberate through Europe and across the Atlantic, installing a deep Eurosceptic in the LC presidential palace and someone who had long professed admiration for Russian President Vladimir Putin. The 2026 Commonwealth Games have been officially awarded to the Australian state of Victoria. It will mark the 16th time the Games have been hosted by Australia, but it is the first time a state or region has been awarded the multi-sport event. The 2026 Commonwealth will be staged across several cities, including Melbourne, which hosted the 2006 Games. 16 sports have been confirmed on the initial program, with up to 7 more set to be added. The Commonwealth Games Federation, CGF, entered an exclusive dialogue period with Victoria's authorities in February. The Commonwealth Games Federation is absolutely delighted to award the 2026 Commonwealth Games to Victoria, said CGF President Louis Martin. Commonwealth Games Australia and the Victorian government have set out a bold and innovative vision that provides an exciting new blueprint for hosting our major multi-sport event. Australia's Gold Coast hosted the last edition of the Games in 2018. The 2022 Commonwealth Games will take place in Birmingham from 28 July to 8 August. That's all we have for you today on the VOD Weekly News Recap. Until we come your way again, I am Glorious Haddijatou Njie. Happy holidays, thanks for watching, and have a good evening.